Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be checking out the KINGKONG ET125, also known as the LDARC ET125. I mentioned in my last KINGKONG video that KINGKONG were changing their name to LDARC. I don't know why that is, but yeah, this is a series of copters, so I've got the smallest and the biggest. This is the ET100, and then they do a ET115 in the middle. So yeah, when I reviewed this one, I liked it. It's a nice model for indoors and outdoors. It compromises on both though, because outdoors it doesn't quite have the power of a model that doesn't have these protectors, and indoors it's a little bit bigger than a tiny Whoop, but you can get it in tight spots. This one I think is interesting because you can see it's quite a lot bigger. And it's going to have more power as well. It's using the 2.8-inch propellers, and I first saw these, I think, on the KINGKONG 110 GT, and the Full Speed Leader 120 also has these props. They're a very good prop, but it means a lot more power for the model. So I'm trying to decide what this model is for. I think you could fly it indoors, but you're going to be even more restricted to where you can fly it indoors, maybe just through different rooms and things like that rather than proximity between objects, because I think you're going to hit them. This is also going to give off a huge draft as well with these propellers. This one gave off quite a draft indoors and would blow things about. This one definitely going to do that. So yeah, trying to decide what this one is for, but I want to check it out anyways. So the difference between this one and this one really is just the props and the motors. So I mentioned the 2.8-inch propellers. The motors are bigger. They're 1104 7500 kV, where this one is an 1103 7800 kV. And it's a little bit heavier. This one is 94 grams, actually only a couple of more grams between this and the 115, which is why I've skipped that one. I might review it at some point, but yeah, I can't really see much of a need for that one. This one at least is going to have a huge amount of power, I think, despite it being a bit heavier. And with its battery, it is 128 grams, so quite a heavy model. It's a 550 milliamp battery, it's a 2S, and yeah, it's a bigger battery than the ET100. I guess that is to compensate for the bigger propellers so that we get a longer flight time. But other than that, the ESCs are the same. 10 amp 4-in-1 BL Heli S ESCs. It's the same flight controller, so Pico BLX with a buzzer. It doesn't have an on-screen display. And as I mentioned with this one, you're stuck with multi-shot because the Pico BLX has to have a change in the CLI, and you also have to solder a pin from the PPM to the motor 1, because if you change this to D-Shot 600, you'll have 3 motors working. I think motor 1 just won't move because it's linked up wrong, so you're stuck in multi-shot, same as before. We've got the same VTX underneath, so it is a switcher, kind of. I mentioned before, it's 100 milliwatt and 25 milliwatt. So 100 milliwatt out of the box, you've got a little solder pad there, and you have to short it to get it to 25 milliwatts. Just 16 channel. We got a button on there to change it, and you got an LED sequence, same as the previous one, to change the different channels there. This is actually the plug and fly version, so it's come with this plastic over the top here, and the receiver cable is coming out the top there, but I'm just going to chop that off and maybe plug in a XM Plus, but that looks like a 3-pin 1.25 pitch JST. And same as before, you struggle to access the USB connector here, so you either have to tape the top off, or you can cut out a hole so you can plug your USB cable in there. So same issue as the ET100. Got a sleeve dipole antenna coming out of the back there. And then we've got the same camera up the front as well, which is a CMOS camera. It is separate to the VTX. and it just sits at the top here with its angle fixed. It does look to me like the canopies are actually the same canopies here, so the only thing that's changed is the frame size. These are obviously bigger to cater for the propellers as well, but yeah, everything very similar. One thing I forgot to mention in my ET100 review is some people said, oh, that would be great on 3S. They're actually telling you not to use a 3S on any of these models. They are not rating it for it. They're saying because of the high kV. Same on this one. Warning on the battery here, saying just to use the included 2S battery. So there you go. 2S will be fine on this, but on this one, yeah, it's a little bit porky for the size. I would switch the props out, but it was still a great model nonetheless. So you get the same stuff as before. So we've got 2 spare sets of props and screws. We've got a prop remover. We have got the LED sequence for the VTX there. 2 spare rubber bands, so yeah, it's using the same rubber band system as before, but you don't want that snapping because it looks like they put the band on first, then build everything on top. So the ESCs and the flight controller, that'd be an absolute pain to get that back on. So hopefully it won't snap there. You'll notice as well that the ESC board actually only has 2 screws holding it in, and that was actually the same with this one as well. But I didn't have any problems, so I'm not expecting any with this one. So what I need to do is take these 3 screws out here and see what the receiver's attached to. See if it's attached to the 3 volt or the 5 volt, and put my receiver in there. It's come with the same version of Betaflight as this one, so you might want to update that to version 3.2. So I'm going to take this apart, set it all up, and see if it's worth investing in compared to this one. You can actually see there that it's come connected up to the 3 volt, this cable for Spectrum. So plug and play, yeah, kind of. I'm going to have to desolder this one there, and it looks like we have got a 5 volt down here. So I'm just going to switch this red wire to there, cut this off and solder it to an XM. Okay, let's go for the line of sight with this one. It's really just to compare the punch against the ET100. So let's have a go at that. Wow. Yeah. It's got a lot more punch than that one. Very similar to the other models that are running this prop, such as the LDARC 120. Let's see that again. Yeah. So I kind of guess there is a place for this one. You can still fly it indoors, but you can't get it into the smaller gaps that you can with the tiny Whoop class. But then outdoors, you've got a lot more power than the ET100. And I imagine it's going to fly very similar. Let's try a bit of acro. Yeah, I can definitely feel the drag on those prop protectors against the wind. But wow, still very maneuverable and very fast. Does not seem to have any problems such as pitching back like you get with these models in acro with prop protectors. And I have to say, it's flying very nice, and the power delivery is very smooth, and it's quiet as well. That's something I like about this 2.8 inch prop, is how quiet it is. Look at that, I can barely hear it. Man, yeah, these fly well, these ones. But like I say, you would struggle to get through the tiny gaps in the house. But wow, it feels like it flies really good. it's a good prop, this 2.8 inch prop. A bit heavier on the amps, but it seems to fly nice on this frame. Okay, so let's come in for a landing and we'll do some FPV with it. So first of all, I did some FPV outdoors in acro mode, and then I took it indoors and stuck it in angle mode and see how it flew indoors. So my thoughts are that it flies better than the ET100 in acro mode, which I found surprising because we've got a bigger surface area of drag there for those prop protectors, but I found it to be pretty smooth. There's a couple of wobbles in the fast maneuvers. You can see when it's inverted there, it just gets a little bit unsettled. You could probably tune that out a little bit. But yeah, I was really impressed with how it flew, and of course there's a lot more power there than you get with the ET100. These are just the stock PIDs, so yeah, I think you can make it fly better. You can see inverted yaw spins there, no problem. I've been really surprised how both of these models have flown with those prop protectors, but I will still say that a model such as the Leader 120 without the prop protectors, it flies better, it is so smooth, so I do still think it's a compromise having a prop protector on there. But as you can see, I'm able to do my usual maneuvers. As for the other things, pretty much the same as the ET100. There's a tiny little bit of noise that filters through to the camera, but that doesn't bother me so much. Again, the video reception I think is superb, and you have to bear in mind it's running at 100 milliwatt, and it's also being used in conjunction with the Realacc Pro Plus diversity module, the Menace Bandicoot antenna. That is a real game changer with these models that have the linear antennas. You can see hardly any breakup whatsoever. Very comparable to a model running a cloverleaf antenna, which is great. The flight time, actually really good. I don't know if it is more efficient with this setup, but the flight time around about 4 minutes. So yeah, impressed with the flight time. I do think it's heavy on the amps with these props, but I personally like them. Yeah, it could do some damage to your battery, but I'm always doing damage to my battery, so I like to have the power that these props give. So the camera, again, same as the ET100, it's a CMOS camera, so, you know, it does get washed out under high exposure and it gets dark as well when you point the camera to the sky. But you know what, I didn't think it was too bad, so yeah, thumbs up for the acro with this one. And yeah, let's come in for a landing and I'll take it indoors and we can see how the thing performs there, because I was surprised again. So actually, flew really well indoors. Just like the ET100, it took me a little while to get used to the throttle because you've got such a sensitive throttle compared to the ET100, which is sensitive for indoors as well. I mean, if we're comparing these models here that have crazy power to weight ratio compared to something like a Tiny Whoop, then you're going to have to be careful on the throttle anyways. But with this one, it was just a couple of clicks difference between shooting through the roof and hitting the ground, so that did take a little bit of time to get used to. But again, video reception very good around the house. A little bit strange with those huge prop protectors there, strange perspective, and I was a lot careful flying it around the house. You can see still able to get around the stairs, but I was finding that I was bashing into stuff even easier than the ET100. But you know, you've got to decide what you want, because to have a model that flies indoors and outdoors, there's a compromise. So do you want the model to be bigger and have more power like this one, but be more tricky to fly in tight spaces, although you can see here actually managing to thread the needle behind the chairs there? Or do you want a model that's smaller but is clearly going to have less power, so it's going to be better for indoors but not so good outdoors? You know, it's great that KINGKONG or LDARC have given this opportunity for all of these different models. So again, it's going to be difficult for me to say which one should you get, because it all depends, you know, what you want. You know, for me, I think I like the ET100 better because I think it's better for flying indoors, and these prop protectors, unless you're crashing a horrendous amount, I don't find them much use for outdoors because I got loads of space and things. I guess if you're flying through gates and lots of proximity through trees, then, you know, maybe it'll be better for that. But for me, I tend to fly in open spaces quite a lot, so I prefer how the model flies without the prop protectors. You know, more accuracy, smoother PIDs, and I think that will always be the case. But this model is a great compromise, and again, same as the ET100, really, I wish it had an on-screen display. I wish you didn't have to cut open the canopy to access the USB cable. And, you know, despite all of the KINGKONG models out there, they really do not want to put an on-screen display on there, but I don't know why. But there you go. I mean, yeah, you could argue that, you know, it's got a buzzer, so you don't need one. But actually, what happened on this particular flight with this high C battery is the buzzer never actually went off, because I'm just hovering at like a couple of clicks of throttle there. The battery just died. I got like a half-second warning between the battery dying and the beeper going off. So I actually do think on these smaller models, a on-screen display is less than a gimmick, because you can say, yeah, I can see my battery voltage slowly dying. Whereas with a buzzer, you know, you have to set it to go off at a certain point, and it's tricky with these smaller models because they just sort of go off a cliff and the battery dies, and that happened with this one. Just flying around, I seemed like I got a ton of power, and then the thing just fell out of the sky. The ESC's reset because the battery had gone way below what it is capable of accepting, should I say. So yeah, there you go. I got a long flight time indoors, like I say, 5 minutes was really nice, but I couldn't get underneath the chairs, and you can see in the mirror the size of the thing, you know, it's a lot bigger than a tiny whoop, and yeah, I was bashing into things, etc. But I do think there's a place for it, and there's probably a place for the 115 model as well, because if you think that is in the middle, that's got the 2.4-inch propellers, so maybe that one will be easier to fly indoors. You can get through even more gaps and things, but you're not going to have as much power as this one outdoors. So yeah, I think the thing to take away from this is it seems that this ET series is a good series to invest in. You're going to get a good experience out of it. You're not going to struggle with power or brownouts or anything like that. So yeah, I think it's a good package, and I always love it when models come in a tub as well, and it seems like every single one of them can be flown indoors, which I was surprised at, because I did like a news segment and I said this one's definitely not going to be for indoors. Well, look at this, I'm wrong, I'm flying indoors with it. So yeah, I think at any moment now the battery is going to cut out. I was going to go under the chair and end the flight there, but actually it ended it for me. So I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one, and as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.